talk about four things, and here they are, right? We're going to talk about why the next generation matters. We're going to talk about this concept of intentional design. We're going to talk about what we heard from 1,000 of you in this region, and then we're going to talk about some specific recommendations. So let's get started. What does the next generation matter? Some of you may recognize a picture of this gentleman. Anybody? Having a generational moment, aren't we, some of us? Okay, it's Peter Drucker. You know, Richard Ford, and I know he's been through here, right? Richard Ford wrote the book The Rise of the Creative Class in 2002. But what Richard did was he took this term, the creative class, and what it really is a sexy term that Peter Drucker actually coined in 1959. Peter Drucker called them knowledge workers. Knowledge workers are people like me, my team, probably nearly all of you, who work with information and solve problems for a living. People like the engineers at Cessna and all the aircraft companies, right? Folks like the graphic designers, the lab technicians, those of us who work in healthcare, those of us who work in social services, and certainly those of us who work in government, right? So Richard Ford called it the creative class, but this guy in 1959 was saying how important knowledge workers were going to be. Peter Drucker had an amazing way of being able to sort of look in a crystal ball and predict the future. In the last book that he wrote, that came out in 2007, he said this. I'm not going to bore you with reading the whole thing. Some of you are readers, but some of you are picture people. And Drucker said that the number one issue facing our cities and facing our companies is going to be growth in that baby boomer older generation and the shrinking of the younger generation. Already in Europe, 1 in 4 citizens is over the age of 65. In Japan, it's 1 in 6. In Canada, by 2022, they will have a shortage of 3.9 million workers, and that is if all people aged 15 to 99 are working. And some of you are like, well, what is 3.9 million? 3.9 million is 10% of the total population. They're a country of only 39 million. Some of you like words, but I like pictures. This is a map of birth rates, fertility rates in the 1950s. Now, some of you weren't alive to remember 1950, but this was before the bill. It was before Roe versus Wade, and it was before this DINK mentality, double income, no kids. So most of the countries of the world are paying for a darker shade of pink, meaning that they were producing more than 2.1 births per household, enough to replace the population. But just 50 years later, the map had turned blue. Every developed country, including China, right, was now having too few babies to replace the population. So Wichita, the United States, every developed country is in a longer-term war for talent. Now, for those of you who are baby boomers, this is 2 words, job security, right? There are fewer people coming up through the pipeline. We need you to hang out a little bit longer. What we need you to do may be a little bit different, and we'll talk about that as we progress through this evening's presentation. But the long and the short of it is, just in pictures, you can see how the next generation really matters in our communities. Many economists are predicting that cities that have a concentration of talent win. So I brought you another map. This one is a map of the world, and where you see the spikes, the higher the spike, the deeper the concentration of knowledge workers, or what Richard Ford calls the creative class. And here's how the numbers shake out. 18% of the world's population is producing 9 out of 10 patents, and 2/3 of the world's global economic output. What this means is, quite literally, some workers have a higher economic impact on an economy than other workers. So in Wichita, we've got to make sure that we continue to invest in knowledge-based jobs, knowledge-based occupations, because that's how the wealth in the community rises. Now, what does this mean here? Based on our research, we found a couple of really interesting things. You might not see it on Monster, you might not see it on the local job boards, but your employers are saying that they need 3,000 professionally skilled workers to fulfill their job demands over the course of the next 6 to 8 years. But you're also seeing this. 23% of the folks that we surveyed said, I'm out of here in 4 years. Now, you translate that into an economic impact, and you've got to burn the platform for change in Wichita, because here's the economic impact. $610 million over the next 4 years. If all those people who have said they're going to march actually do March. Now, 610 million, big number. What does that mean? So let me translate it into terms that are going to resonate for you. 610 million is 3.3 arenas. Remember what it was like to raise money for that? Right? 610 million is 11.3 national centers for aviation training. This is a lot of wealth, a lot of community wealth that's at risk if we can't figure out how to engage and retain the next generation who right now is calling Wichita home. So, what should we do? Well, I want to share a quick story about what I call intentional design. This might seem, I had an economics professor in college who would tell a crazy story like the one I'm about to tell. And you would kind of wonder, like, where are you going with this? And then he would say, by the power of economics, I will link this all back together. So, hang with me just for a second. We just talked about a really big number, $610 million of economic impact, leading the community in the next 4 years. 3,000 jobs, and employers are saying that they're looking for professional, well-skilled folks. What does all this mean? You know, where do we go from here? So I'm going to sidestep, tell this little story about intentional design. Several years ago, I decided that I was going to put down roots in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, I have lived in 7 cities in the last 10 years, including Budapest, Hungary, Freiburg, Germany. I have played professional basketball in Europe. I have lived in Des Moines for a while. I've heard all the Iowa jokes, so no. I had worked and lived in a lot of different places, so making that decision to put down roots was a really important one for me, and I also knew that I wanted to own a home. So I set about trying to find an architect who could reflect my values. Has anybody ever been to Madison? I can't really see you, so just maybe audio, like, ooh. Yeah. Well, you could have done a lot of this. So, Madison has a reputation as being a very progressive, granola crunchy, Birkenstock wearing, tree-hugging community, and all of that is true. So when you go to build a home in Madison, you've got to be really thoughtful about carbon footprint and all those things. So I wanted to find an architect who could build a home. I was willing to use recycled materials. I wanted to find an architect who was willing to build a home that would sort of match the environmental consciousness of the community that I was calling home, but who could also make it sort of like a place that I was going to love and want to grow old in. So I found an architect online, through Craigslist actually, getting some plans online. And I found this architect, and we were communicating back and forth via email, and I wanted to make sure that he would work with me. I was willing to give him earnest money. I wanted to know what it would take. And he said, here's what it's going to take. He's emailed over a 43-question PDF, and he said, you need to fill out every question on this, and then we'll decide if we can work together. So one of the questions was this one. Awesome question. This was hard. This 43-question design guide was hard. What do you want to be homesick for? And I finally just got really honest. And I typed in this response, and I thought, well, if he wants to work with me or not. And he did. And we went on to design together, and he built a home for us that, I want to grow old, I want to die. Here it is. And you can see my black lab, Zach, and my yellow lab, Joey. And these are 2 more windows, and I share those because the dogs can also see us, when we pull in out of those windows as well. So Chris really took those extra steps to make sure that the things that we were going to be homesick for, he could build in to our experience. And it's been for this and many other reasons